I was in prison for 4 months, 121 days. It sounds short, but I can guarantee you it feels like a long time. That was a very emotional time because my brother was having his first son, and they sent me a sonogram image, and obviously it was incredibly moving. I wrote a letter to my nephew, hoping that he would read it in the future.
Tan preciosa fue esa foto y todo lo que generaste que no pude sino escribirte una carta, aunque aún estabas en la barriga de tu mamá. Qué bonito es amarte sin conocerte. Puedo ver la silueta de tu rostro en el eco.
Venezuela. It was once a vacation destination for Americans, but has since spiraled into a full-blown political and humanitarian crisis. Criminals masquerading as politicians run the country, employing violence and detaining anti-government demonstrators like Marquez. But Marquez was one of the lucky ones who made it out. In the last 4 months alone, an estimated 120 anti-government demonstrators have been killed, and upwards of 1,000 more remain in prison.
I grew up in Venezuela. I'm also a dual citizen, but I've always identified myself as a Venezuelan, where I lived most of my life, where I've done politics there. So I studied law in Venezuela. During my law degree, I was in the student movement in 2007, which is where we participated in the only electoral loss that Chavez had. So the opposition coalition tasked me to go to a very Chavista state to help organize the petition drive for the referendum on Maduro. In our constitution, we can legally revoke the mandate of a president if we have enough signatures. And on my way to doing this process, I was stopped at a National Guard checkpoint. It was a routine procedure, a routine check, and they found something that was completely legal, which was pamphlets and a little bit of cash to help the logistics of the petition drive that we were organizing. Because of that, I was put into jail. That very first 24 hours, I was interrogated by the intelligence police. I was threatened that I was going to be tortured if I didn't answer their questions. And then after that, it was 4 months in prison. I went through 4 different prisons, 7 different cells. Not only are there political prisoners in Venezuela, but there's systematic torture on both political prisoners and common prisoners.
One of the most well-known protesters is 23-year-old Wuilly Arteaga, who, in the face of chaotic and sometimes violent protests against President Maduro, has continued to peacefully play his violin in the streets of Venezuela. When did you start playing the violin, and how did you end up deciding to play it during protests?
Comencé a tocar violín por internet hace aproximadamente 4 o 5 años, y cuando decidí tocar en las protestas es porque conozco que la música lleva un mensaje de paz en la calle, y pues estuve ahí tocando. Los muchachos, los manifestantes se animaban a seguir luchando. Incluso cada vez que iba tocando, pasando los días, la Guardia Nacional incluso comenzaba a escuchar ya la música. Sin embargo, la represión cada vez era más fuerte. Pero me mantengo firme porque luego que me revientan el violín, pues me llegan otros violines y entonces vuelvo a tocar otra vez, y ya mi música no es solamente para los manifestantes, sino también para la guardia, para todos. Mi música es para unir a Venezuela y para unir al mundo, en realidad.
In all 24 states of Venezuela, you have people protesting for change and putting their lives at risk, putting their livelihood at risk, because that's how much Venezuelans really want to have democracy.
No amedrentar con perdigones, ni con metras, ni con nada, ni con reventar mi violín, porque vamos a seguir en la lucha. Pase lo que pase, vamos a seguir en la lucha, Venezuela. Gracias.
For everyone watching this right now who might be wondering, why should I care, or what can I do if I do care, what would you say to them?
Well, I think the issue of democracy in Venezuela is not just an issue for Venezuelans. The issue of democracy is a regional issue, so it's a world issue. If we think about just here in the United States or in Latin America, it's a universal right. for people to choose who they are governed by, for people to have their basic human rights or basic necessities met. These are things that we're fighting for, and I think the solidarity that we've seen so far from the US, from the region, especially most of the countries, is really important. But I think because of how bad the crisis is, there's no way of ignoring it. And so my message is, please continue to share your solidarity. Please ask your governments in all of Latin America to be very voiceful, to fight for democracy in Venezuela.
Yo espero ser una representación, soy una representación de todos los venezolanos, especialmente de los jóvenes venezolanos que están buscando escribir la nueva historia de Venezuela sin una gota de sangre más.